Hello everybody, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be having a look at these three tyres. Just these three, no other reason than these are the three that I have. So what we have here is three different types of adventure bike tyre. The one on the left is the Pirelli Scorpion Rally STR. The one in the middle is the Anlas Carpa X, and the one on the right is the Motoz Rallz. We're going to have a look at each tyre individually and see which one could be the best for your adventure bike. I haven't done enough miles on these tyres to give you a performance review, and the one in the middle I've never even fitted. So today we're just going to have a look at the facts of the tyres, the specifications, the tread depth, the block pattern, the distance between the blocks and the rubber hardness. So first of all, let's have a look at the Pirelli Scorpion Rally STR. Now everybody's heard of Pirelli. They're an Italian performance tyre company, and these tyres come as standard on a lot of adventure bikes. Now these tyres here are a 150/70/18, which means they are 150 wide with an aspect ratio on the side of 70%, and they are on an 18-inch wheel. So Pirelli advertise these as a Nobili Enduro on-off tyre for adventure without limits. At the time of filming, the price for this rear tyre is £134, and the matching front tyre in a 90/90/21 is £109. That makes it a total of £243 for the set. Now these tyres have done 600 miles, so they're not brand new, so not a perfectly fair comparison. They're not that worn down, so we'll be able to get a good idea of the tread on these tyres. Now in the middle we have the Anlas Carpa X. Now Anlas are a Turkish company, and these are the same size as the Pirelli. Now I haven't fitted these yet, but they will be going on that bike to give a little bit more off-road performance. Now we can already tell by looking at them that the knobbles are larger and more spaced out and bigger gaps, but we'll get to that in depth when we get the measuring equipment out. So Anlas say these tyres keep you going on any terrain in any condition for enduro ventures and designed for off-road. So the price for the rear on this one is 111, and the matching front in the 90/90/21 is 99. So that is only £210 for the pair, which is £33 for the pair cheaper than the Pirelli. Now moving over to the Motoz Rallz. Now we can see that these are a much more aggressive tyre. These are an Australian company. Now this is their off-road performance tyre with reasonable road manners, and it says there's no need to change the pressure between on and off-road. So straight away, even by their own admission, this tyre is reasonable on road, won't be as good performance on tarmac as the Anlas or the Pirelli. Now this tyre is actually only a 130 wide because it's on my Himalayan, but they do a 150/70/18. So for the purpose of this video, we'll discuss the price for the 150, which is a much more popular size adventure bike tyre. So the rear tyre in the 150 size is £225. Now I've not looked at the Rallz front because I found it too aggressive. We have the Dualventure front. We'll look at that when we go to the front end. They also do the Motoz series in tubeless and tubed versions. So there's a difference there in the carcass strength, and the tubeless are a little bit more expensive and tougher sidewalls. So for the price on the rear of this Motoz Rallz in the 150 is £225, and the Dualventure front only tyre is a 126 tubeless or 98 in the tubed version. So that's a price of the pair between £323 and £351, which is a whole £141 more than the Anlas Carpa X. Right, so let's get some measuring equipment out. So we have a durometer to test the hardness of the rubber. We have a depth gauge to look at the depth of the tread, and then we have some calipers here to be able to measure the distance between the tread. So first of all, let us look at the hardness of each tyre which will give us a good indication of how soft and grippy they are and also how long they're likely to last. So first of all, with the Pirelli, we can see that that is about 67, 66 on that meter. And then the same test with the Anlas Capra X shows 69 to 70, so pretty much the same as the Pirelli. Then lastly, but by no means least, let's try the Motoz Rallz, which again is between 68 and 69. So just by chance, we've actually managed to get 3 tyres that are all pretty much the same hardness. So there is more to tyre wear and longevity and grip than just hardness. The distance of these blocks and the leading edges and the gap along the tyres, that will also affect how the tyre wears and how long it lasts. So going back to the Pirelli, we'll now have a look at the tread depth. So bear in mind, this tyre has done 600 miles, so unfortunately not a true representation of a brand new tyre tread wear in the middle, but we'll give the middle a test anyway and see what that comes with. So at the moment we are looking at 7 millimeters left on the middle, and then we'll just go on this leading edge where I've only just touched, and that is showing 8 millimeters. And then on the far edge here, which I've not actually touched at all yet, is about 5 millimeters. So moving on to the Anlas Capra X, this is a brand new tyre, so this will be a true representation of what the tyre comes with as standard from new. And we can see there that that comes with between 10 and 11 millimeters in the middle. And then it's about between 9 and 10 millimeters at the very edge as well. Now over to the Motoz Rallz. Now this tyre's probably only got maybe 150 miles on it at the most, so still like new but not totally new. But we'll test the middle, which we expect to be much higher than the other tyres anyway. But my tread gauge doesn't even fit between the blocks, so that's how deep these tyres are. But we'll try and get this best we can and as fairly as we can. And I would say that that is about 14 millimeters of tread at the center, and then at the one of the knobbles not quite at the edge. That is just under 14 as well. And then on the very edge, they're actually 15 on this edge here. So as measured, and we can see that visibly, and as expected, the Motoz Rallz has the deepest tread of the 3 tyres. As we can see by the style of the tread on the Pirelli, there is an open groove all the way along, and then just some slots going on here. So there's not much sideways grip, so to speak. But we'll measure the gap between the blocks using the verniers. So we can see the gap between those blocks there is 15 millimeters. The gap between the edge blocks is 13, 14 millimeters, and the gap at the very edge is 8 millimeters, and they do have a bit of a strip along here, and that gap is down at 5 millimeters. Moving on to the Anlas Capra X, we can see that this also has the groove all the way along, although it's not perfectly straight. and it also has gaps in the blocks there. Every other block has a full open path, and then the next block along just has a smaller groove that's not full depth. But we'll measure the distance here between these blocks, and that is 21 millimeters, and the gap in the side blocks is 14 millimeters. And then we'll look at this gap here in the side as well, which is also 14 millimeters, and the gap on the very edge is 20 millimeters as well. So now moving on to the Motoz Rallz, you can see this center block here offsets to the right, then to the left, then to the right, then to the left. Now that is the main difference in tread pattern between the Rallz and the Motoz Adventure tyre, where those blocks are more central and they stay central. And also the gap is slightly different. So let's check the gap here between the two major blocks in the centre. And on that we are now at 31 to 32 millimeters. The gap here between the side lugs, or the semi-side lugs, is 16 millimeters, and then the ones to the actual side lugs, that is only 8.5 millimeters. So the distance as well between these lugs here, because these are all slightly offset, they are also about 30 mil, and the gap at the very edge of the tyre is 24 millimeters. So it's a similar story with the front tyre. Now starting with the Pirelli, we can see that the tread on those has larger blocks and closer together, and you have the band all the way from either side of the tyre. Moving on to the Anlas Carpa X, we can see the blocks are smaller, they are further apart and more gaps between them, and again you can see the track running across from left to right, and also the gaps between the blocks on every other block. So very similar to the rear tread. And this is the Motoz on the front of the Himalayan. This isn't the Rallz, so it's not the matching tyre to the back, but this is the Dualventure tyre, which can match with any of the Motoz rear tyres. This is a front only tyre, so you do not get the Dualventure in a rear tyre. Now as we can see, the gaps between the blocks are very large, and the depth of the blocks are also pretty big. So we'll get the gauges on these just to do a quick hardness test and then a depth of tread test. 65, 63, between 62 and 63 is 6 mil, is 7 mil, between 10 and 11 mil, about 19 to 20 mil, 12 mil. And then the spacing on the Pirelli is a little bit different because it's got these kind of chevrons. So it's 12 mil at the deepest part of the chevron and just about 10 mil at the narrowest part of the chevron. On the side lugs, that's also about 10 mil, and the depth in between lugs on the Motoz is about 9 or 10 mil as well. So the gaps on the Anlas Carpa X are 10 mil for the middle ones, and then the next ones along are 8 mil, and the side ones are also 8 mil. Well, I'm not sure exactly what we've proved there. Probably that there is no such thing as a unicorn tyre, and all tyres are different for their different purposes. So what we have with the Pirelli, I would say, is a 30% off-road tyre, 70% on-road tyre. The Anlas Carpa X is a 50-50, and the Motoz Rallz is more of a 80% off-road, 20% on-road. Now there will be compromises off-road and on-road no matter what tyre you have, so you just need to do the best you can to decide which tyre is the right one for you. We'll be getting this Anlas Carpa X on the Vosges 800 soon, and we will be out again on the Himalayan with the Motoz on that. So please let me know in the comments which tyre you like the best out of these three and which tyre you prefer on your bike. So the other tyres I was considering for the Vosges were the Motoz Enduro Trail and the Enduro Trail Plus, but I decided to go with the Anlas Carpa X mainly because the look of the tread pattern and the competitive price. So if you've enjoyed that content, please give me a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Cheers, bye bye.